All right, let's talk Oregon Ducks. Fresh off a Big Ten title, first year in the Big Ten, no problem for Oregon. They get it done. They dominate the conference. They dominate the college football world heading into the playoff as the number one seed. They're clearly the best team in football, but they're not resting on their laurels like all great coaches, Dan Lanning, and like all great programs the Oregon Ducks do. They are always focused on the recruiting side, and they got great news on that front as we're preparing for the conference championships. Exciting time for Oregon. I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, this Ducks team obviously is the best team in football. It's undeniable. Now, there's some things on defense that weren't great in that championship game, but overall, this is a team that has championship DNA. Their offense is outstanding, clearly well coached. And as 2024 is heading toward an exciting finish, this program is also focused on the future. They ain't going anywhere, folks. Great news on the recruiting front. Let's pull up this report that maybe some people missed with all the hustle and bustle of the conference championship games. This is courtesy of SI.com. On the first day of early national signing period, five-star defensive back Naeem Offord flipped from the Ohio State Buckeyes to the Oregon Ducks. The number 12 overall recruit in the country gave credit to Oregon's relationship with Nike co-founder Phil Knight and his connection to the program. Offord spoke on the reason why he decided to make the switch was partly because Knight is going to help him make his own sneaker, interesting, when he comes down to Eugene, among other undisclosed plans. He played a big role, like a huge big role, Offord told CBS Sports to Phil Knight. He's actually waiting on me to get up there. He's got a lot of stuff planned for me. He's going to help me make my shoe. Knight, along with Pat Kilkenny, the Pape family, Jim Morris, Ed Miletus, helped create Oregon's name, image, and likeness collective, known as Division Street, contributing greatly to the Ducks' recruiting success under coach Dan Lanning. This group uses their experiences in branding, marketing, sponsorship, and design in order to benefit their student athletes and improve upon their NIL opportunities. All right, like it or not, NIL and these kind of deals, that's what college football is at today's day and age. If you're an old school person, maybe you don't like it, but this is just the reality of football. And give credit to where credit is due. Oregon is better at this new era of football, 2024 era of football, than anybody else. And this latest news is proof of that. Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on all of this. But first, Ducks fans in the comment section below, obviously, the number one seed, best team in football. We all get it. But is there one team you do not want to face come the college football playoff, right? Obviously, you're feeling great. You're the most talented team in the country. We all understand that, well coached. But is there one team you're just like, kind of a matchup issue or something like that? Give us one team you don't want to see come in college football playoff. Put them in the comment section below. But Miles, what are your thoughts on this latest news involving Oregon?
Yeah, Nick, the player as obviously just a few days ago, but still really big flip for Oregon in Big Ten, getting a guy from Ohio State to flip to Oregon. But I think the key here is something you brought up as far as NIL and how Oregon is uniquely placing themselves to, like you said, just be better than everybody else at NIL. They have a really interesting strategy here, I think, and they have a very interesting weapon in Phil Knight. I think everyone thought that that would be great. I think they thought, he's going to open his pockets and give them as much money as they need. But it's going further than that. There's more than just money. And I think you look at teams like Ohio State, who they flipped them from. Ohio State has plenty of money. Ohio State has, 20 plus $1 million allocated every year for their NIL. They can match Oregon in the money department. What they cannot match Oregon is that allure of having Phil Knight, having these great marketing, branding geniuses on their NIL collective to come in and entice these players. Because what player wouldn't want their own Nike shoe? It's probably like not that crazy of a thing for Phil Knight to come and be like, oh, well, we'll make some, signature shoes for these guys. We'll sell them in the store. Probably a win for us. We sell a little bit of extra product. But no one at Ohio State, no one can do that, especially because Nike is the top of the ladder when you're thinking about cleats and shoes and whatever it comes to football or any, casual wear. Nike's at the top of the ladder. So I think this is a really interesting place that we're at. And I think we're starting to see the effects of it. Last year, we heard about it. We didn't really see any of these, secondary effects of Phil Knight being here. But now we're seeing it pay off. We're seeing a guy like Phil Knight come out here and make direct impacts, not just with money, but because of who he is, what he has available to him with the Nike organization, and being able to flip players off of that. Like I said, Ohio State, they definitely have enough money to match Oregon wherever they need to be. They could come in and offer that kid, $2-3 million a year if they wanted to, and it'd be no problem. but they don't have that extra oomph in the NIL game. And I think that's what makes Oregon better than all of these other teams. They've found a way to utilize their school's assets and really just go more than just money. They're doing special things for these players. It's not even like buying Lamborghinis like Texas does and park them out there and let everybody like rev the engines. It's just like little things that are special to these players. And I think it's going to be what puts Oregon over the edge for many years to come.
This whole NIL world and everything that has changed, it reminds me a little bit of the 2013-ish era of Alabama football, where Alabama at that time was clearly the most dominant team for the last decade or so under Nick Saban, but they had had a couple of years where they had had a few issues because major college football had changed, right? The days of the power football scheme had kind of gone away. Everyone was running spread, things like that, and it was giving Alabama some fits, no huddle. Nick Saban famously went on record and said he hated it. He hated it. It was everything he didn't want football to be. Absolutely hated it. But he made the change. He hired Lane Kiffin to be his offensive coordinator in 2014 because he understood if he wanted to win, he couldn't change the world around him. He couldn't change his system, but he could be the best at it, right? And we saw, of course, Alabama turn around and win a lot of titles. In fact, of course, Dan Lanning, 2015, was a graduate assistant in Lane Kiffin's second year as offensive coordinator with the Tide. He saw that firsthand, and of course, went to Georgia under Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart enacted very similar things. He brought Georgia into the modern era of college football with some of the changes he brought in, some of the coaches he hired. Dan Lanning understands that same concept, but he's taking it to a whole nother level. It's not just X's and O's on the field, which of course he's doing as well. What he is doing is he's recognizing this is a new era, a new system, and instead of fighting it, instead of pushing back, and instead of just all right, we'll just deal with it, we'll put up with it. He's decided, along with the Oregon leadership, along with guys like Phil Knight, these collectors, right, working together, that they're going to be the best at it. And that's what really, really matters. What matters when push comes to shove is getting the best players, the legal way to do it, to win football games. That's all that really matters, right? Recruiting has always had different kind of shades of black and white and shades of gray in terms of money being handed to these kids and things like that, going back 100 years. But now that the world has changed, you've got to be the best at it in this new system. And that's what Dan Lanning has done. And I know a lot of people, a lot of old heads, like, I just miss the old days and stuff like that. Yeah, I miss it too when Eric Dickerson got a gold Trans Am in the 80s and somehow flipped to Southern Methodist at the last second, right? It's always been part of this world. Dan Lanning and Oregon, to their credit, are the best at it. And that's why they're the best team in football, right? It's not just, look, great coaching, great X and O's, great motivator. That really matters. But push comes to shove, as Alabama proved it in the past, Georgia proved it in the past. Winning national titles comes down to getting the best players. And in this new era of college football, there's no one better at that than the Oregon Ducks under Dan Lanning.